Welcome back, Neil Devs here. In today's video we're going to see three projects. One is a temperature exchange, the second one is going to be a stopwatch, this would include local storage, and finally a filter checkboxes or checkboxes filter. Anyway, this will include dark mode, and every single project has been done by using JavaScript. I was planning to do more, but I believe this video is long enough, so that will be it. Right, once again, this is Neil Dev. Let's grow together. Let's get started. Do not forget to subscribe and leave a like on the video and any comments below. All right. Hello everyone. In today's project, we're going to build temperature units, which means how to convert Celsius unit to Fahrenheit or Kelvin or vice versa, or Kelvin to Kelvin and so on. In order to show you that this is working, I hit 32 and I got, from Google the same value. If I go to Kelvin, if I go here to Kelvin, 305, here go to Fahrenheit to Kelvin, Fahrenheit to Kelvin, 273. So this is working. This is a simple project. All right. Without further ado, this is Neil Dev, and let's just get started. Alright guys, as usual, I already have my files already there. Hit exclamation mark, then enter, you get the boilerplate. It's a personal choice. I always like to give it a website icon. Just hit go live server. This should open a new tab for us. And indeed this dot, let me remove this. I will leave this for future reference. Remove type attribute and shortcut keywords are meant for Internet Explorer. Okay. Now inside of the body tag, let me begin with the header and an h1. Pretty straightforward, just saying temperature units. Just like that. Then I have a main, and then I have form -control, right? Then I have an input with the ID of site A, and let's go with the classes as well of number. Sorry about that, forget about that. Now I got select with the class select input and a few options, which are three options with the value Celsius with the default attribute of selected. There we go. Fahrenheit and Kelvin. And then outside, okay, this is form control. This is the select. Sorry, I just need to indent that, otherwise I'm blind. I need another form control. So say form control, and then an input with the ID of site B, but with the class of number, right? But this will have a placeholder of result, and initially this will be disabled. All right, that's for our simple project. I know that with Google, the final project, you can actually change a few values and it's being reflected to the previous one, but we are just going to do a simple one for us. All right, the input. Now on the other hand, we're going to have another select element, pretty much the same idea as we did, but just we are going to change the selected attribute for the second one, because initially we want to change Celsius to Fahrenheit. That's the default value that we're going to have, due to the selected attribute. All right, that's it for the HTML. Remember just to link to JavaScript. As you can see already that I omit the CSS because it's not important. I would like to focus on the JavaScript. So let's jump into it right now. First thing first, I need to apply DOM manipulation because and I need to get the select elements. So I will say const select input query selector all, and the select that has the select input class. Let me remove this, we don't need that anymore. All right then. So and enter, sorry. Now let me iterate through the select input elements by using the for each loop. So for each, and here I'm going to use two parameters because our main goal here is to get each value for each select element. Let me just say that I got my callback function and then need each value for each select element. Here we're going to use the iterator and the index. Index is not mandatory because what we're going to do next is not the only way, but rather to use index. All right, now in order to get those values, for the value of each selected element, I like to say for each, because here we have two select inputs and we need to attach a listener for each input, and the event is going to be change, and this naturally will trigger a callback function for us. We need to get the current value, so I will say console.log what the current element that value. If I inspect the page, let's go within the console, the value here is going to be Fahrenheit, and then Kelvin, and then Kelvin again, and then Celsius, and then Fahrenheit again. See, I'm getting those values. Alright, that was the first step, but I would like to store that in a variable called val. So in this case should be e.value. That's why we get that. I would like to store this by using the assignment operator. Alright, then we need a way. The browser is required to know which drop-down list the user is dealing with at the moment. This or this. We need a way to tell JavaScript to know that. So this is where our index parameter comes into play. Basically, we will say here, if my index is equal to 0, means which is my first input, this one right here, index is equal to 0. I would like to, I'm dealing with the first input. Otherwise, it's going to deal with the second input. But before that, I'm going to create an object at the very top and have this as a state object. So I have my params. A current value is Celsius, the default one, and B current value is Fahrenheit, the default one. Side A, side B. So I will say right here, if index is 0, for right here, I'm dealing with the first parameter. So I need to say, okay, params, which is my object. No, this was params, which is my object. That a underscore current value should be equal to the current value. Okay, I'm changing the state of this object, actually the property, but maintain this as a state. And the same idea is going to run for the other one. So instead of letter A or side A, this should be side B. Index is 0, I get inside A. If index is 1, I get inside B. That's the way that we're telling JavaScript that who are we working with at the moment. Now, if I just console.log params, you will see what's going on. So inspect within the console. If I hit Kelvin, my state runs to Kelvin to Fahrenheit. Why am I doing that? Because depending of this or what JavaScript knows at the moment is going to trigger certain actions, certain units conversion. In this case, going to turn Kelvin units into Fahrenheit units. Make sense? All right, then let's move on. So since I already have my params here, I would like to destructor first of all. So we'll say const destructor this param. So right away, let's just note everything. My God, copy, paste, comma, paste, and this instead of B should be A, it should be equal to params. That's the way we can destructor it. Because why? I would like to compare the current value of those elements. And how can we do that exactly? Well, by using the switch statement. Allow me. So switch, the key is going to be A underscore current value, comma, because it's going to be array, B underscore current value, that to string. Why is that? Because we cannot compare literally arrays. We need to convert them into string, meaning that in my first case scenario, I will have naturally my array, and the first case here, as you can see, the default is Celsius, if I can type correctly, to Fahrenheit, if I can type right. Again, to string, we need to convert that into string, array into string. And just to show you, let me just console.log this one as a first case scenario, and as default, let me just console.log wabadab. So for instance, if I hit Kelvin to Fahrenheit, I get wabadab. Fahrenheit to Fahrenheit the same, but if I hit Celsius to Fahrenheit, it should get first case. Alright, now the next thing to do is to get the input side A and side B. I need to apply do manipulations. So at the very top of everything, we'll say input element, which is this one. This is side A. Remember, input with the ID side A and input of side B, which is the result. Okay, I'm getting those from the DOM manipulation. All right then, moving on. We need a conversion function. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you don't know chemistry, I never was good at chemistry. I just, you can just Google it, the functionality, the conversion. I'm just going to write it right here. So function to Fahrenheit, and I get the number as a default parameter, and this is just like a formula. Not big science. If you don't know that, it's okay. You always can look that in the internet or Google at it. All right then. So if we go back right here inside of where are you? Yes, inside of my statement. Yeah, prompts. I need to say the following. Say const entry. Entry is my entry point, which is this site 8. So who is site 8? Well, input element. So we'll say input element that value. That's the way that we can get the value of the input text. Okay, so in this case, we're going to store that in entry. Now, instead of my first case right here, let me just comment this. I will say, okay, now my output element, which is this one, the input side B, that value are going to assign that to be the entry point. But we need to convert that since we already gave the function, to Fahrenheit. I would like to enter the entry. However, this is going to be in string type. I believe this is not going to trigger like an error. There is no error, as you can see. Just turn that into 41. So Celsius to Fahrenheit number 541. Okay, that's okay. But I just need to make sure that I'm passing an actually integer and not just a string. I mean, with JavaScript there is no issue with that, but I rather to use plus in front. Plus in front means parse int. You can use that. I mean, parse int, and this one right here is going to trigger the same action, as you can see. But I rather to use plus sign to turn that string into an integer. Sorry. All right, that was our first thing, but I know you're getting the idea. So let me come up with the remaining functions. So to Celsius and to Kelvin, those functions. Again, you can find these on the code pen. As you can see right there, and just copy and paste these functions to save us some time. Now, since you get the main idea, we're going to follow the rest of the cases. So let me just grab all of them. Yes, let me just grab all of them right now to save us some time, because this is just conversion. Okay, let me hit enter. Let me go here, and this one should be right here, and let me explain you. Okay, Celsius to Kelvin. This was pretty straightforward. Just need to call to Kelvin entry. That's way as it is. And as you can see, it already counts with a to fix. To fix means that I only want to show 2 digits at the end, as we have on our final results. That's the way that we can use to fix. That's the case that we can use to fix. So we have all the combinations, all right? Celsius to Fahrenheit, Celsius to Kelvin, F to K, F to Celsius, Kelvin to Celsius, and Kelvin to Fahrenheit. But what if we have the same case, like Celsius to Celsius? Of course, I would like to show the same result. So for that, that's where our default value comes into play. We need to say the following. If A current val is equally, then B current val, because remember that this object is storing like a state who we have at the moment. In this case, Fahrenheit to Fahrenheit, as you can see on the console. If we have that, I just need to say output element that value should be equal to the entry, which we already set that to be equal to input element that value. If I hit Celsius to Celsius, oh, it's triggering a different one, but you get the idea. If I hit Celsius to Celsius, we should get the same number. But again, Google has advanced code that it doesn't allow me to hit the same, units. Change it as a default for another unit. But this is a simple project. It is going to help you to enhance your code skills anyway. Alright, so far so good. Now, my next step is when I change a single number here, I would like to see the changes reflected on this one right here, the actions. So in order to do that, I need to say the following. I need to say input element which is site A, this input text. I need to attach a listener to that, and this is going to be input. Now, why input and no change? Well, the reason is because change is only going to trigger the action when we lose focus on the input, like 32 and then lose focus is going to trigger that action. But I would like to right away trigger the action every time I click on it. As you can see, we are triggering the action there. See? So in order to do that, we will rather to use the input listener there, right? So that once that's has been clear, let me just console that log e.target that value for you to see what's going on. Input element. Okay. Sorry about that. Input element. Okay, this is a input. Oh, sorry, I forgot the event object. My bad. Okay, and there you go. We're getting the input, as you can see. All right. Now, the other thing to do here is once we already have the value, which I would like to store in a variable called entry. So const entry should be equals to e target that value, the current value that's being displayed instead of my input. Again, e target that value. What do we want exactly? Well, we want to trigger. Remember the power of observation. I would like to trigger the conversion, which this is the whole functionality right here. Since we don't want to repeat ourselves naturally, I would like to close this into a different function that I'm going to call main. So basically, just above this, we'll create a function called main. Should get an entry point as a parameter. Go right here, entry, and just paste the whole code. We get the structuring params and the conversion thanks to the switch statement, this one right here. Now, instead of using this code, this whole switch statement by, and we need to pass entry as a default parameter, but we need to call main. So entry close main, and here as well we need to call main. So Ctrl C, Ctrl V with hidden entry, calling entry. Now if we say 5 6 1 3 2 5 6, but from Celsius to Fahrenheit 132, we get the same result, meaning that everything is working as it should be. Now the next step here is we have a problem. What if we hit a symbol or letters? You can see we get the no add number answer. Right, we need like a certain validation for this. So in order to do that, just above this, we're going to create a function. We need to say function, and we'll call it validation. And this will accept, of course, the entry as a default parameter. And we need to apply a conditional here. I mean, if the entry doesn't exist, like this one right here, if it doesn't exist, if I switch that, okay, need to make sure that we have something there to run it or to avoid some errors, as you can see on inspected token or whatever. Or is not a number. This is a JavaScript function that is going to look for the entry. If it's not a number, if it contains already a symbol or a letter or whatever there is not a number, please just output element value. The output element, this one right here, should be null. This just would retain the placeholder text that we set initially, which is result. Okay, just make sure of that. Otherwise, just run main that accepts the entry point. Otherwise means that everything is okay, we are ready to go with no problems, so please convert. That's the meaning. Now we need to call validation for our entry point. Where? Exactly in the places that we called main. So comment, paste, and comment main here, paste. Again, if I hit a number, you see? If I hit symbols, there you go. But if I hit numbers, there you go. Sorry, the first one was letters, my bad. And yeah, if I hit numbers, there you go. We got the conversion as we wanted before. Now, the next step is to update the attributes. Sorry, the attribute selected, this one right here. Because if I go here and then not within the console, where are you? Elements. Let me expand this, remove this one, and let me show you the selected elements. Where are you? Selected. Sorry, I'm kind of slow here. Sorry. Jesus. Okay, we have selected and selected, right? So if I change this to Kelvin, I should see the selected attribute on the Kelvin option and not on the sections. This is not mandatory, but I'm ready to show you and also to tell you that you should apply semantic logic here, because options comes already with selected, and we need to avoid some conflicts, some warnings, and etc. So that's the way that we need to change the selected attribute. But how can we do that exactly? Well, let me show you. If we go inside of my listener right here, just beneath validation, let me just console that log I dot selected index. This is a method from JavaScript that tell us the selected index, of course, of the current element inside of the select element, the current option that is being selected. Meaning that, in other words, let's go with the console. If I hit Kelvin, I get the index is number 2 from my JS line of code 83. You see 83, this one right here. That's why we get that. So now I need to say, since we already learned about that, we need to say query selector all. We need to select all of the options, and this return a node list. So I need to say, I can say for each, and here I will apply my iterator and another index, because we need to change the selected attribute according to who is being selected. So first of all, clean means it's going to check every time, it's going to look through every time we make a change thanks to this. So first of all, I need to clean. So the iterator means for all of them, remove attribute and method, and the attribute is going to be removed is going to be select. Sorry if I can type selected. That's the one that's going to be removed initially. Then we need to apply a conditional. We need to say if I dot selected index, it's equally to the index that we are currently in, where selected index is a property that sets or returns the index of the selected option in the drop down list. We already learned that. So if this index is equal to the index of the options, please set the attribute. So set attribute set attribute of selected. What attribute I'm going to apply, what that selected attribute to be selected, right? Only if that is equal. All right, fingers crossed, guys. Let's go here within, sorry, not the console, but body. Let me just inspect this one, inspect and inspect as well. Okay, this is select. I need to see the options. There you go. Now, as a default, where is this select? Yeah, this is the selected Fahrenheit. If I remove this, Kelvin, now selected has been removed. If I remove this to Fahrenheit, selected has been removed, and everything now is working. So if I hit a number to 54, what it was, Fahrenheit to Kelvin 54, Fahrenheit to Kelvin 54, 285, 285. Right, this was a simple project, straightforward. Hope you enjoyed, and again, like and subscribe for more. Please leave a comment below. I need to know if I need to improve on something. Thank you. So what are we going to see? Well, stopwatch. Basically, if we hit start, naturally is going to run. If we hit stop, it's going to stop. We hit reset, it's going to run everything from scratch, from zero. If we hit start and then lap, you will see the detail that every time we hit on lap, is going to show, as you can see, the scroll bar remains in the last lap. Okay, that's a cool feature over there, and also has local storage. As you can see, I can refresh the page and my labs still there, the list of them. And let me show you, if I go within application, local storage, this one right here, and these are my list. I can refresh. I have 12 of them, and of course I can clear my list. This deals with local storage as well. As you can see, my local storage has gone. Alright, I have already my VS Code open already with my files set up. You will find everything on the GitHub repo version number 2 because you're going to see 2 branches. Alright, I'll leave the link in the description below. Okay, let's start with the HTML document by saying for the title Stopwatch, and then of course, as usual for me, I'd like to set a website icon which you can find in the GitHub repo. Remove those because those are for Internet Explorer. Link our CSS. Remember, usually like now I omit the CSS because I rather focus on the JavaScript rather than the CSS. That's why. Alright, let me remove. I just hit Go Live Server. That's just open a new tab for us. So we have a main tag, then an h2 with the class of title, and the text of stopwatch. Then a div with the class of watch, an inner div with the class of time that contains the text of 2 zeros, colon, 2 zeros, colon. This is our watch. There you go, you see? Now I have a section with the class of actions, and that outside of the watch div, of course, that holds 4 buttons within a specific ID: start, stop, reset, and lap. And the other section that I have, which you can copy and paste, this is not important for me to you to watch me type every single thing. Another section with the classes list, another list ID labs, and the button with an ID of clear. Alright, now JavaScript, do not forget to link that, of course, above of the closing body tag. So script /main.js. So the manipulation by logic, we're going to do it step by step. So the first step is to deal with the start button because that's the one that's going to run everything. So basically we need to say const start equals to document that get element by ID. In this case is just start. Now for the time, I will say document that query selector by query going to select dot time. I need the dot in this case for query selector. Alright then, so start. So yeah, start is going to need a listener because of course I'm going to click that button and this is going to trigger an action, which my callback function is going to be something. That something I need that to be repetitive. So that leads me to think about set interval because I need to run a specific function that I'm going to call run every 10 milliseconds. Why 10 milliseconds? Don't worry about it, I will explain that later. For now, let's just create the run function. Here, remember, this is going to count. So our basic JavaScript knowledge, we already know how to create a counter. Remember, you're gonna let count equals to 0 and then inside of the function count plus plus every time we click the button. But in this case, it's going to be automatically. So instead of count, I'm going to call it milli. Starts from 0, so when I hit start, the run function is going to run the milliseconds one by one. But if my milli it's more than 99, I want to reset the milli back to 0 and also run seconds plus plus. Of course, in order to do that, I need to create the variable seconds. So here let seconds equals to 0. Why 99 and why 10 milliseconds? Because 1 second is 1,000 milliseconds, meaning that the very last value is 99. But since I'm going to run this function run every 10 milliseconds, so how many times do I have to run this to reach 1 second? So 10 times what to reach 1,000 milliseconds? Well, the answer is 100. So basically when we reach 100 here means that we reach 1 second. That's the reason I'm running 10 milliseconds and no 1 millisecond. Alright, That's the reason this is 99, because more than 99 means 1 second. So follow the same idea, another inner div who will say if seconds it's more in this case than 59, because 60 seconds means 1 minute. I would like to reset the seconds back to 0, but for minutes I would like to start counting. Of course this needs to be declared, so let minutes equals to 0. Right, let me remove this. The next step is to display those values. How can we do that exactly? Well, we have the timer, that's why we call the timer. So we need to say time that inner text should be equals to backticks, because here we're going to use $, curly braces, $, curly braces, colon, $, curly braces, and we're going to display the minutes, the beginning, seconds, the middle, and milli at the end. This is going to run, but with certain problems. Of course, I'm not going to wait until I see 1 minute, so let's get started with 58 seconds, start, 58, 59, 1 minute. As you can see, we have one problem. First, I want to display 2 digits. So in order to do that, we're going to run a ternary operator. I would like to say let a new variable ms for milliseconds. So if milli is more than 9, if that condition is true, question mark, just display milli. Otherwise, again, backticks, 0 in hand, $, curly braces, milli. So the same idea is going to run for the seconds and for the minutes. So pretty straightforward. You can copy this code from the GitHub repository. It's not big science. This is S, this is min, and this is ms for milliseconds. Run it again. Now we have 2 digits for every single part. Great. Now another fancy things that I would like to show you is that we can declare variables by using destructuring an array. How exactly? Well, we need basically to say let and then put every single value inside of an array, but equals to another array which and a specific value, which means milli has the value of 0 in this order, position index 0, position index 1, and so on. Okay, if I run again, it's going to work as usual. Alright then, hard refresh. Our next step here is to deal with the buttons stop and reset, which I already have in here. I just call it stop button and reset. So stop button, sorry, stop btn. That's the reason I use that, because just stop is a keyword for JavaScript. That the event listener, click, and in this case a callback function. What do I need to do to stop the running? I need to stop set interval. But how can I have access to set interval if set interval has been created inside of a callback function? Like this. Well, we need to create a variable for this. We need to move this up, a level up. How? By using a variable called let interval. As default, the value is undefined thanks to JavaScript, but thanks to interval and using the assignment operator equals, now we have access to set interval. So in order to clear the interval, we need to call clear interval when we hit the stop button, and we need to clear interval, this is the variable that we just created. We go stop, we just clear that interval. The same idea is going to run for the reset button, but with just a specific movement, a couple of additions. First of all, if I'm going to reset the counting, I need to reset every single variable back to 0. That's my first step, different from the stop button. So if I restart but hit reset, it's going to clear the interval, so it's going to stop, of course, and it's going to start everything from scratch. So if I hit the start button again, this counting is going to start from 0 and not from 1.82. See? Now in order to clear that, we need basically to say time.inner text, but instead of using, oh my god, backticks, we need to use just double quotes, 00, colon, 00, colon, 00, colon, because that's the main value that we want, of course. Start, reset. There we go. That's all we needed for now. However, we have a little bug. Let me show you. If I hit the start again and again and again, even so faster, we encounter a problem with this little bug over there. Even if we hit reset or stop, it's not working. So in order to deal with that, we need to create a controller that I'm going to call let is running and running. In this case, going to be false. So here I'm going to apply a conditional. If is running is not false, which is, if is running is false, sorry, if it's not running, of course I want to run this, but I need to restart, because if I'm running this, meaning that is running needs to be true. That just take us to the following logic. So initially is running is false, then if I hit the start, it's going to be true. If I hit the start again, this is going to be true, but this is going to be false. Therefore, interval is not going to run. Therefore, I won't see that bug over there. See? Now, we have another bug here. If we hit the start and we hit the stop, if we try to hit the start again, that is not going to run because is running now is true. Therefore, start in this if conditional is not going to run. See? The same idea goes for the reset button. If I hit start, reset, hit start again, it's not going to run. What do we need to do exactly here? Well, we need to reset the is running value back to false for every single callback function here. For stop, it's running false, and for reset, it's running false. Now again, start, but if I hit stop, it stops. You hit start again, it should run again. There you go. If we hit reset, start again. Alright then, that's the end of part number 1. Part number 2, dealing with the lab inner list and clear list items. So this is section number 2, part number 2 of this video. Again, don't manipulation right away. This is just my inner list. You can see that because it has the ID of labs. Lab BTN, clear BTN. So all of them, so 2 buttons, 2 listeners. So lab BTN that add a one listener, in this case is going to be click. This is going to run something. What do we need to do exactly? That's the question you need to ask yourself to follow the logic. I need to display the set value in my inner list. How? Well, we already have time. We just need the inner text, but we need to store this where in whatever variable do you want to call. Let's call it x and use the assignment operator. There you go, you have the current value of time now. You want to display this inside of an inner list, but we need to follow the semantic of an inner list. They have list items, so we need to create a new list item here. So create document that create element, in this case going to be my li, but my li, the inner text, because it should have a content or something, should be the value of x. And then labs, which is my inner list, I will append that just list item that we just created. We start lab 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 lab. There you go, we have it. However, we have a little not bug, just a fancy thing that I would like to add, which is that every time we hit lab, it's only going to show you the previous lab and not the last one, which is at the very bottom of that list. So how can we do that exactly? We need to deal with this scroll bar. This scroll bar. We need to tell JavaScript to show the scroll bar at the very end, the last child of that inner list. How can we do that exactly? Well, we need to call labs, which is the inner list, which has attached the scroll bar. There you go, you see on the CSS. Now we see slabs scroll to. This method comes with 2 parameters, the x-axis and the y-axis. The x-axis, I don't want to move that to anywhere, so 0, but the y-axis I need to use a formula. A formula that I need right here. So we'll say I need the height of my list item that I just created, so I'm going to get bounding client rect. Remember, this method returns a done rect with an object with 8 properties. In this case, we're going to use y. Okay, and this is going to be time. So we're already seeing this method in our previous video. And then labs that child element count. how many childs my inner list has. This is just a formula that I just find out in order to work. I mean, if I hit lab, have a start, lab is it's always going to show us, of course, scroll at the very end, and of course the last value of our lab. Okay, that's great. Right, that's the end of section number 2, I believe. No, it's not. I forget the clear button. So click button, and yeah, everything. Add event listener, click callback function. Here, since I'm going to clear, we need to say labs, which is my inner list, inner HTML, because it already includes HTML tags in that, equals to, you can use empty string, but I'd rather to use null. So again, start, blah, and clear list item, reset, stop, and there you go. That's now the end of section 2. Section number 3, local storage. Alright guys, for local storage, pretty much we need to go right here. Now, I need to change it. Instead of X, I need to call it text. If you've seen this on the GitHub repository, the code already, I call that text. But since local storage stores key value pairs, I'm going to store an array of objects. So each object will have a property of ID and the text itself. So the property ID, I need to create that. So we'll say ID, I'm going to use the date constructor, then get time. And remember, I need to say to string because local storage stores string types values. Then I'm going to use a function add to ls, which I'm going to create later. I'm going to pass the ID and the text for that. Just again beneath everything, and then local storage add to function, and then add to local storage parameters ID and the text. And I'm going to create an object. An object, thanks to MScript 6, I can do the following: ID, text. Because this is the same by saying ID, ID, text, and the same object. It's pretty much the same, just MScript 6 syntax sugar. Then once that I create that object, just for testing purposes, I will create a variable called items. This is going to be an empty array because I want my local storage to have an array of objects. So initially, empty array, I have my objects. I need to add that object into that array. So JavaScript basics, items that push the object. Once that I push that in my items, I need to send those items in my local storage. Remember, local storage that set item because we're setting key value pairs. The key is going to be labs and my value is going to be items. However, this is a raw array. We need to send string type, so we need to say JSON that stringify for this. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Alright then, I believe that's the first part of this local storage issue. Fingers crossed, inspect, hard refresh. Maybe I already have some information. No, I don't. So start, if I hit lab, stop, okay, we should have two items. There you go, and that's great. However, my god, if I refresh the page, you will see that my local storage still is there, but not being displayed in my browser. How can we fix that? Well, we need to create another function that I'm going to call get ls, pretty self-explanatory, to get local storage. And for this one, I'm going to use a ternary operator. I need to return my local storage. Why ternary operator? Because you might have not a local storage initially. So if you want to get local storage like this, local storage that get item and then the labs, because that's, key value pairs, that's the key that we use to create our local storage labs. If this doesn't exist, get list ls will give us an error if we use that function later, which we are going to use, of course. Sorry about that if you hear that. So yeah, so if this exists, of course, I want to return that. So, but again, this is a string type. We need to json.parse that as an object, JavaScript object. So everything inside of that parentheses. Otherwise, just return an empty array. That's what I want for the get local storage. Why? Because what's the next step? I mean, if you think about it, okay, we have the local storage. We just refresh our web page, but I need to display those items, which at the moment there are two items, inside of our browser. So we need to create a function I'm going to call display list items. And this one I will say get local storage. So depending on those values, if we have local storage or not, either way it's going to return an array. So for this, going to say for each. We're going to loop through them because remember, it should be an array of objects. In this case, going to call it item, my iterator, and I'm going to I need to show my my text inside of this. So we need again to create a list item, put the text inside of that, append that, and use this part. So instead of repeating ourselves, repeating that code, I will grab this code because this is the code that we are going to repeat, and I'm going to create a new function, reusable function. So we say function that create list items, pretty self-explanatory. In this case, I'm going to send the text as a parameter, and pretty much everything stays the same. But I need to call that function where I want to remove it, which is right here inside of the lab callback function here. Right, create list item, create list item, and here as well create, oh my god, okay, copy and create list item. I need to call that because we are reusing that function. However, remember that local storage stores an object, ID a text. In order to get that text, we can use the dot notation, you know, basic of JavaScript, how to get an information. So item dot text, we will get that text, and yeah, display list. Now we need a way to call display list. So when our window loads, we need to call display list. That makes me think to use the window global object. This one right here was a window that add event listener, and the listener DOM content loaded, and I'm going to call display list items. It's going to run itself, and there you go, the previous two elements or two pieces of data that we had before is showing in the side of our browser now, meaning that at this point it's working. I mean, at this point. However, we will encounter one little issue. Let me show you. If I hit start and then lab, just to stop, we should have 3 items, right, inside of our local storage. However, it's going only to display 1. Why is that happening? Well, this is because since we're just refreshing our web browser, the code is running regarding this item, these hard-coding items, this empty array. But we don't need that. We need to run get local storage. If it succeeds, it's going to return the previous data. So here we need to make a change. Basically, we need to say let items, instead of it an empty array, in this case going to be get local storage. Why? Because local storage already either returns the local storage, which is an array of objects again, or an empty array if it doesn't exist. So if we refresh again, of course, still 1. Let me just start this lab. We should have 4 pieces of data, hard refresh, and there you go, it's still working. We already have 4 data. Alright then, I believe I'm missing something. Where I clear the list item, of course I need to clear my local storage. If you forget how to clear, don't worry, you can always Google that out. Doesn't make you a bad developer, just need, you know, a little more practice, and then clear the item. And don't worry, because remember, I am a new developer. Okay, clear bottoms. Okay, clear list, hard refresh. Of course, this is not going to run because my local storage has been removed. Alright guys, for this part I believe it's pretty much it. We have a functional stopwatch. Start, stop, reset, start, lab. It's always going to show you the last lab. You can see hard refresh. There you go, we're still having a good data. Clear list, hard refresh, lab, hard refresh. There you go. Hello guys, welcome back. In this video we're going to see how to build a filter with checkboxes. As you can see, already had a feature of dark mode. This was really simple, don't worry about it, because our main focus is going to be with the filters. This is the explicit way because we have the alt button. As you can see, if we click on Asia, Europe, or Oceania, yeah, that one, we get all of our filters there, as you can see. If we click back to all, it's going to show you all. Remember, this is the explicit way, because the implicit way, I have it right here. Let me just change my JS file, and there is the implicit way. If we remove everything, naturally the program or JavaScript is going to show you all of our items. All right, let's go back with our explicit way with the all button. So without further ado, this is new tab. Let's scroll together and let's get started. Alright guys, so I have opened just already my VS Code. It's already open, and remember that you need to get install live server as an extension, because if we hit exclamation mark, hit enter, and then go live server, is going to open a new tab for us. And remember, the images and the whole code you can find it on the GitHub repository. Right, so we are there, and the title would be holiday. And as usual for me, I like to give it a website icon that's coming from my images folder, an SVG image, and then remove the type attribute as well as the shortcut keyword, because those are meant for Internet Explorer. Now let's link right away our CSS file, and let's use the box icons, from the boxicons.com website. As well, I'm going to leave this on the description below. Right away, inside of the body tag we have our main tag, then a side, and next to it a section with a class of items. So each section will have an article with a class of item, an inner image with a class of photo, and div with the class of item-info, header, and so on. Again, you can copy this for the GitHub repository, but don't worry about it, because this information, as well as the rest of the images, are going to be injected by JavaScript or by using JavaScript. Now, inside of a site, we should have an h3 with the title of holiday spots, then the div with the class of dark mode underscore switch, and then an input with the ID of dark mode, but this should be a checkbox input, and a label with the ID of dark mode underscore label. Pretty straightforward, And remember that basic HTML knowledge regarding forms, the label and my input tag, the input should have the ID and the same value of the form in order to link this, because when I click off the icons, I should be able to see the changes reflected on the checkbox. So to make sure of that, we need to give it the same value, dark mode, and there you go. Now initially this input, only this one will have the attribute of hidden, which is the same as saying display none. Right, that will be fixed with the CSS, don't worry about it. Now here we'll have a checkboxes div, and instead of it we will have a couple of groups, div of groups. Again, this information will be injected through JavaScript. I'm just going to leave a couple of them as an example, because I need to show you how the CSS will work. And remember, since we're going to work with the explicit way, the first approach is going, the first input should have the check attribute already there, but not the rest of them. Alright then, CSS. As you know, my method of work here is that I usually omit CSS, because I like to focus on the JavaScript. So let's jump into right now. This is from Google Fonts family. I got the Google Fonts, start everything from scratch. I just hit the body. Now I'm gonna take the main tag, and the remain of CSS code. Again, you can copy paste the whole code from the GitHub repository. It's okay, because remember, our main focus is the JavaScript. There you go. Now our first, I should close that. Our first approach here is to deal with dark mode. Remember, the one that's going to trigger the dark mode is the label. Therefore, we need to say document that get element by ID. Remember that we call it label underscore dark mode, I believe, or dark mode underscore label. Sorry, yes, dark mode underscore label. And then I'm going to store this in a constant called dark mode. Why? Because the dark mode, I will attach a listener, which is going to be a click. That's the one that's going to trigger the action of the dark mode. So now on my callback function here, I will say document that body. Thanks to JavaScript, we can get access to the body itself, the body element, just by using dot notation instead of get element by ID and another query selector. Then we will say class list and then toggle, because we're going to toggle a class that we're going to call dark. Okay, and then inside of here, just back to the CSS, I need to say, okay, if my body has the class of dark, I like to change certain variables. Remember, thanks to the CSS selector, that's the way we can create variables, you know, double hyphen at front, and then whatever the name you want, put it, and the variable. So if my body has the class of dark, I like to change that. Of course, this is not going to work because I forgot, sorry, the script tag, sorry. So main.js, hit, there you go, something is missing, which is white text. So basically just beneath the main tag, sorry about that, just leave near the airport, you might hear this a lot, sorry. If my body has the class dark, trigger the text color inside of the main tag and then just, you know, change it. And there you go. That was our first basic step. Right, our first step here is to display my information, you know, because remember that I told you that article inside of the section is going to be a file container as well as the div with the class of group. This one right there. So since we're not working with any database or any other API, we're going just to hard code my information, which is an array of objects. Please watch that we have several properties. The important is category and images. Why? Because once my window or the whole document, it's been loaded, the content, sorry, not double click. Tom content loaded. If that is being loaded, I like to trigger a function which is display items, and this one right here, we'll need to create a function. So display items, no params. I need to display first of all my items on the right. So I need to get DOM manipulation. I need the fodder, which is checkboxes and items. So I'm going to use DOM manipulation with a const items. You can document the query selector with the items, and the same for the checkboxes. But we are going to start with the items. So we need to inject that information. So items, that inner HTML should be equal to something. We need to inject that. But where are we getting that information? Well, with our array that contains that information. We need to say places that map and something. Places that map returns an array, which I'm going to store in a variable called display. And this map method will return an array, so I will display this inside of my inner HTML. So map, here I will say spot as an iterator, and remember, since we're looping through an array of objects, each spot is actually an object. So since I'm going to use every single property that I have there, it's better for me to use destructuring. So I will destructure the ID, title, img, desk, properties should be equals to spot. Why? Because this method should return something, which is an HTML tag or a skeleton. Since we already have it here, I'm just gonna copy, paste it right there. There you go. If you can see, it already comes with the $, curly braces, and what is missing is these images in my inside of my source attribute. So $, curly braces, img, we're getting different images now. However, we have one little bug, this comma and white space. The reason is that places that map is returning an array, and we need to display an actual string. So we need to change the value of display, which is naturally at the moment an array. But in order to do that, we need to use the join method. We need to join the array, turn the array into an actual string by using an empty string space. Empty space, sorry. There you go. The bug over there. That's what we wanted. The same idea is going to wrap just a little different with the display btns function, which is going to create display btns function. This one right here, display btns. Okay, it's the same. And since this is going to run the same idea, remember that the fodder in this case is checkboxes that inner HTML should be equals to something. That's something that are going to call category btns. So category btns. Don't worry about it. I know this will get an error. Let me just comment this for a moment. So the power of observation. What do we want exactly? We want to display those checkboxes that are coming inside of our array. So you can see the category property, but we only want this once. So we need to loop through the array and get that category only once. If it's repeating itself, just get that only once. So the best suitable method that we have is reduce. Remember, this method should return an array, which I'm going to call it const categories. This will return only an array of categories, which means that this categories array will have 5 elements: all, Caribbean, Ocean, Asian, Europe. Console.log categories. I'm going to show you that in a second, so let me explain how method reduce works. Reduce, it comes with 2 arguments. First is my callback function, and then is as an optional is initial value. In this case, going to be an array with the value of all. Inside of this callback function comes with 2 params. First is my accumulator, which is going to call values, and then my iterator, which is going to call item. Values initially has the value of an array with 1 value, which is all. And inside of my callback function, I need to make sure that I will return my values, because these values is storing an array. If I go back here, of course I'm not going to see anything because I'm not inner HTML, nothing. So we did the console, we should see only all, array with 1 value. See? Okay, great. We need to do something here. We need to say if my values, which is my accumulator, that includes, this is an array method, item that category. Why? Because remember, this is my iterator. We are iterating through an array which has an array of objects. Each item is actually an object, and in order to get access to the category property, we are using the dot notation. So if that is not being included at the moment inside of my values, which is my accumulator, include that. How? Well, since my values is an array, we just need to push that. So push what item that category, which is a string value. So by this point, if we go back, there you go, 5 elements. So that's what we wanted. Now, since we already have 5 elements, we need to display those elements. So categories at this moment is an array. So we'll say categories that map, because we need to map through that. So for each category, it's going to return an HTML element. The same idea as we did before. So let me just grab it inside of the return statement, or keyword. We need to return that. We're using backticks. Why? Because we're going to use $ include braces instead of being all. Let me show you. Okay. Yeah, this will be this return. Variable const equals something, and now I can use checkbox that inner HTML category buttons, and you will see we have 5 values with the same value, and as well as comma. Remember to use the join method to turn that array into an actual string. There you go. And we are hard coding the all values, so we need to say Control D, get rid of that $ include braces and say category, because we're looping through these inside of this array, which is has 5 values. And there you go. Now the problem is that each checkbox is being checked by default, but I only want the all to be checked. How can we solve that exactly? Well, by using a conditional. We'll say instead of the return, let initial checked should be equals to a statement, which will return a boolean value. I mean, if my category is has the same value of all, means that it's going to be this first group, the input with the ID of all. I just want that to be checked as a default or initially. So $ include braces initial checkbox, we're going to use ternary operator. If this is true, just check that checkbox. Otherwise, just don't do anything. And there you go. So far, so good. Now, the next thing to do, we already display all our data. That's what we wanted, is to give it to the checkboxes the ability to change the value, to do something. The power of observation. Initially, we have all checkbox being checked, and if we click on any of those, the all check is being we are getting rid of the check attribute, and of course we are displaying only the Asia, or the Asia with the Oceania. You get the idea. So we need to give it a listener to those checkboxes. So I will say here category checkboxes. You can call it whatever you want, it doesn't matter the names. And we'll say checkboxes that query select all of them. This returns a node list collection of those elements, and going to get each input that we have. Input. This should have at least I believe 5 values, but it doesn't matter. So checkbox, so this is an array. I'm going to loop through each of them. So for each checkbox in singular, I'm going to apply checkbox add listener, add event listener of, since this is form element, which is a checkbox, we're not going to use click. Instead, we're going to use the chain listener. I'm going to call it handle change, or actually create that function just beneath function handle change with no params. So for now, we need a way to get access to the checkbox that is being checked at the moment. So how can we do that exactly? Well, there's 2 ways. Is by using the e param and then say let x equals to e dot target. If I may, I will console.log that x value. So if I go within the console and click on any of those, we'll say Asia, Oceania, Europe, Asia again, because that's the one that's being changed. Now, the same idea is going to run if we use this keyword. This keyword, by the context of this listener, is attached to the one that is triggering the action. This is the deep JavaScript knowledge, but just get with the idea that we can use the this keyword, which I'm going to do. Remove, go back. Let me show you that we are getting the same result, Europe, Oceania, Caribbean, and Asia, and back again. You see, we're getting those. Okay, we have access to those checkboxes that is being checked. Now, again, the power of observation. Our first step here is to see that initially all check is being checked, but if by the moment I check any of those, I'm going to remove the check attribute from the all. So I will say the following. Say if this that ID, by using that notation we get access to the ID value, is not equal to all. What does it mean? That I'm clicking any of those checkboxes that is not all, of course. What did I say? Just remove the check attribute from the all. So we need to get access to the all itself. So I will say above, let all equals to document that query selector, not query selector, get element by ID. Since this is a unique ID of all and getting access to this current input, I will say all that in the dot notation check should be equals to false, because I want to remove that. If I go back, this is the one, click on here, and it has been removed. Now again, please use your watch power, your observation. Remember, if I click on Asia and click back on Asia, all should be checked back again. But here, if I click on Asia, what does this tell us? If you see that no checkbox is being checked, or any checkbox doesn't have the check attribute with the value of true. So what do we need to do exactly? We need to go around this, get all of them, and if there is no one check, please check the old one back again. I mean, inside of this if, I will say if what document that query selector all, and we're going to use a CSS selector, a specific selector. So we'll trigger for each group that we have. Remember, this div right here should have an inner div. An inner checkbox. So each group, it has an inner input. If that input is being checked, I need to check that. That's the power of by using CSS selector. And then length. Remember, query selector all returns a node list or a collection of node elements. And thanks to JavaScript, we get access to certain properties. One of them is length. If that is 0, I like to check back my old input. Instead of false, this should be true. Naturally, since this is an if statement, I'm not going to run this for everything because we're going to create a conflict. We need an else statement as well. We need to grab this inside of the else statement because that's my else statement. Alright, again, pretty straightforward. Remember that when we click on Asia and we click on Asia again, we got like all of them not be checked. That's the reason we use query selector all, checking all the check inputs. If the length is equal to 0, meaning that no one is checked, just please check the all back again. If I click on Asia, there you go. Alright guys, the last thing to do in this part is that if I got Europe, or no matter how many, or even all, no matter how many, if I click on the all, I need to uncheck all of them. See, check all of them. So that's the last step. So since we already deal with the first part, now the other part will be else. We need to get all of the inputs that is not all, meaning that we need to establish a query selector here. I will say const other checkboxes that is not all, and again we're going to use a specific CSS selector for this one. Query selector all of them again, because I'm going to loop through them. So a specific CSS selector for each group. We have an input, but I don't want to select, so not the input with the ID of all. So sorry, not, and then sharp, I don't hash, sorry, hash shine, and then all. So that's the way I'm getting all my inputs that is not all, so I'm getting only 4 of them. So I will loop through them. So other checkboxes that for each, let's make it this one easier, let's call it X, should be, so for X that checked, sorry, not checked, checked should be equals back to false, because by this means by the time I click the all one, the all checkbox, I'm going to uncheck the remaining checkboxes that have been checked. Easy. So now let's test it out, hard refresh just in case. Click on all, and there you go. Right guys, our next step, what it is. Sorry guys, if you've heard, I have to record the whole part, which was the last part. So as I was saying, the next part is actually to update the display based on the selected checkboxes. Then I will create a function called update display naturally, and then here I'm going to say const selected categories should be equals to get selected categories in plural. Why? Because this is where we're going to get who is being checked at the moment. For now should be an array of 2 elements, but we need to get that, so we need to say function that get selected categories with no params. This should start with a const selected category should be equals to an empty array, because here is where we're going to push the elements, the text elements, in this case Oceania and Asia for this example, of course. And this should return selected categories, which is the array that we are going to return. Console.log selected categories. Let me just inspect. Of course this will give us an error, don't worry, because here we need to do something. So like I said, we need the power of observation. We need to get all of the inputs that are being checked, and we already did that right here. Document that query selector all of them, the inputs are being checked. But since this returns const, since this returns a null list, like an array, I will call it category checkboxes. It doesn't matter how you call it, just name it. And then this one I can loop through them. So for each checkbox callback function, I will say selected category push something. Why? Category checkboxes returns a node list element, so each HTML element, which is an input, thanks that we gave it the name attributes. In order to get that specific value, we need to get access to the name attribute. So we need to say checkbox, which is my iterator dot name. With the dot notation, we get the value of name. But at this point, we should get 2 elements. If I go within the console, you will see Asia and Oceania. That's what we wanted. Great, that was step number 1. since we have the categories, we need to tell JavaScript to actually display the data according to those categories. So now my next step here is to create a constant called filter places, and then function that are going to call filter by categories. Again, just going to console that log. No, this one right here, sorry. Yeah, console.log filter places, and of course we need to create that function. So we'll say function, and then where was, sorry, filter by categories. In this case, I'm going to call categories as a parameter, and this will return. Why? Because we need a way to filter the data. The original data is up to right here in our original array. Therefore, we need to apply filter places.filter. Remember, the filter method returns an array. That's the reason that we are right away returning this whole thing, the array. And this should be, you know, filter places, and it's going to be console log right here. So filter by what logic exactly? Well, we'll say the item, which is my iterator, and here is the conditional. If the conditional is true, it's going to return based on this conditional. So I need to say categories, which at the moment is this array, selected categories. For instance, we had, you know, 2 elements, Oceania and Asia. And then I will say that includes, what should include? What? The item, that category. Why is that? Because remember, we're looping through this array of objects. Each object has different properties, as we saw previously. Okay, let's see right here, and we need to treat the category naturally. So I need to say if it includes the item that category. If that is included, just filter those. So again, just going to Asia and Oceania, we should get 6 of them, you know, 6 of them. And we got 3 spots for that belongs to Oceania and 3 spots that belongs to Asia, and that's what we wanted. However, the problem is if we click the all button, we get an empty string. You see, we get an empty string, and where are you, console? We get an empty string and no array. But why is that? Well, remember that we create this. Let me open this one, shrink this one. We create the all button by using the reduce method. Where are you? This one right here, okay? That's how we create that. But since we just click on that, according to our logic, you know, to get selected categories, all doesn't exist inside of our original array for category. That's the reason that we are getting, because we are filtering according to the original array. Category of all doesn't exist in that array. Therefore, we need like a conditional here. We need to say if something, just return the original array, which is places. Otherwise, just do as we did before. I mean, this one right here, closing curly braces, and there you go. What it's going to be my if statement? If categories dot includes all, if my array includes all, which array? This array. Meaning that if I click, the all, we should get that. I mean, okay, let's go back, Oceania, and then all, we should get the 10 elements. See, that's what we wanted. Great. All right then. Yeah, the next step is actually displaying these elements inside of our, you know, here. So inside of update display, we need to display that. Since we already have the filter places, we need to say, okay, JavaScript, please display my items according to my filter places. But since this doesn't have like a parameter, we need a way to do that. But how can we do that exactly? Well, above everything, to avoid some conflicts, display items should have a parameter. So in this way, we are making sure that display items actually needs a parameter to run correctly. Therefore, just beneath everything, this one should get the same issue, you know, the same value to avoid problems. So by this point, we should get everything right. I mean, if we click on Europe, we should get only 1. If we get Asia, 4 of them. If we remove Asia, just 1 Europe. If we click all, we should get all of them. And that's what we wanted. Congratulations, guys. You just learned how to make an explicit filter with checkboxes. Now, on the other hand, we need to do we need to make a way to make the implicit way. I'm going to show you how. The implicit way basically is to get rid of the alt button. So here, where we created the alt button, well, by using this as an initial value, we just need to remove that. There you go. But this will create a conflict. Don't worry about it. We just need to keep up. So this was our first line to remove. Then our second line to remove is filter by categories, where you this one right here. This if statement, let me just copy and paste. Copy and paste. My god. Comment this out. Okay. This should be different. Why? Because at the moment there is no all being checked. And what does this tell you? Well, if I want to return all of the arrays, that means that all of my checkouts are not being checked. So therefore my categories here should have a value of 0, meaning that if categories.length, which at the moment is 0, should be equals to 0. If that is true, because I didn't select any of this checkbox yet, just return places. Alright, and I believe that is it. That's all the changes. No, sorry, I forgot something important. Handle change. The whole code here was relying on the all button, because we filtered the check status or attribute according to the all button, of course. So we just need to get rid of this comment. And handle change just state update display, and that should be working. I mean, Caribbean, we should get 3 of them. There you go. And then all of them. There you go. Go with Asia, 3 of them. Europe, more Europe. Remove and remove, and we should get all of them. Alright guys, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. Just subscribe to the channel for more.